Joining us now on Weekend at Gabes with Weekend Gabe is friend of the show, Tim Barnes.
Yes, happy to be here. I'm doing good. Yeah.
Good. Interview's over. I'm glad you stopped by. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your night. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. We have like a hiatus week right now, so I have time to hang out with people like this, figure out what's really going on in the world. Yeah, it's the sun's out in New York now, which is good. I think I experienced seasonal depression for the first time, and now it's mostly gone. But it's sort of like one of those antidepressant commercials where it's like the good part, but there's still a bunch of stuff you should be worried about.
It's still like a bunch of ravens on the phone wire in the back. They don't look too threatening, but it could get worse.
That's funny. I'm glad you can give us some of your time. First, congratulations. I know you just jumped on the Jimmy Fallon show this year as one of their writers, so congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
How's that feel? Because like NBC obviously is an iconic network that is known for its late night comedy shows. So for you to be present on one of the biggest shows in TV history, what is that feeling like?
I mean, it's an amazing feeling. Writing for late night is something I always aspired to, and for it to happen during a pandemic where everyone's working from home is something that could only happen to me. That's the most Tim Barnes way to make a dream come true. For me to write for the Tonight Show from my apartment, never enter 30 Rock, never meet my boss in person. Never.
That's
it's very surreal. That's the answer. Is it's cool, but it's super surreal. It's hard for me to believe anything is actually taking place most of the time.
So you talked about like this is always something that you aspire to, and I wrote this question out, but I realize now that since you're writing from your apartment, I should probably amend it a little bit. But how do you end up in a writer's room like that? Because I watched your comedy from 2016. I've seen interviews, I've seen the podcast thing. You're a funny dude, but like I think a lot of people have a hard time navigating even where to start getting into a writing room.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of different paths. One path is going to Harvard. Another path is another path is similar to mine, maybe, where like I'm from LA and I moved to Chicago just to focus on comedy with a good friend of mine named Ian Abramson. And part of my drive was also I wanted to be a filmmaker and stuff. So I had all these like different kinds of skills, and it turns out like being able to do behind the scenes stuff and proving, in multiple ways that you are a funny person is just kind of how you like. I cannot tell you exactly how I ended up here, but it's like a jambalaya of things. It's all of it mixed up together. But
I like that. I like that description, a jambalaya of things. That's how I feel. Life is a jambalaya of things.
It seems like you've always found humor in a lot of things in your life, including growing up. Like you have this great Men's Health article about your tattoos. That is phenomenal to read if you haven't. I know it's a little bit dated, but it's still phenomenally hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely true. I had testicular torsion when I was in elementary school.
That's one of my biggest fears. Like besides being buried alive, that is one of my biggest fears.
Yeah, it was a strange experience having to, tell my dad that my balls hurt, and then my dad calling my mom at work, telling him like I think his balls seriously hurt, and then me getting rushed to the ER. And,
when dad like confirms like whatever you're as a father, because I know that it's like, oh, my arm hurts. I'm like, it's fine, just don't lay on it. You're okay. And you're like, oh shit, like this is like this might be something concerning. That's when like all the red flags, the alarms, everything goes off. Like we get to the ER. So that's the confirmation when dad co-signs it.
Yeah. And my favorite thing about that article is that they have an image of a guy as on the top of the article that looks nothing like me. He probably looks more like Sam.
Real Calvin Klein model.
He looks like an actor who didn't make Friends. That's
exactly what I like. You know what? That's great. I'm going to put that on my resume, my professional resume.
But you've always like found these moments to poke fun at it and make fun, because even your mom was like, "Why didn't you tell me?" He's like, "Listen, I just can't go to my mom and say, like, hey, my dog hurt." And it's like you've always found this way to like incorporate humor. Is that something that you've just kind of naturally done, or were you watching SNL or anything like during that time period that triggered like, I really would like to like make people laugh or make people feel a certain way?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I can't really pinpoint it. I think Steve Urkel was one of the funniest people to me as a kid, and he really is a revolutionary TV character, just a black nerd to that level, which is almost like the way that you would present a nerd in the 1950s or something, but all of a sudden you've got a black guy doing it on TV. He was one of the funniest people to me, but I do think I do. Just naturally try to bend things towards comedy, because I found that it's hard to give people don't accept the straight answers often. So if you tell it in a joke, it's a little bit easier to digest, and I've kind of internalized since I was a kid, and everything I do is in some way comedic, just because it's a way to kind of go through life, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Do people like, I'm really trying to have a serious conversation with you, Tim. Can you please not put a comedic spin on this? Like, we're gonna lose the house, Tim. Can you not joke stop it?
But even I just love the like weird everyday sort of moments that we all experience, and I think comedy is a way to be like, yeah, we all have to have this odd thing that goes on every single day that we typically try to avoid for some reason. But yeah.
I think that's fair. Well, what is the hiring process? I don't think you have to touch too much, but like when you're being hired for like a Jimmy Fallon, for any writing job, like do they want
you have to like go running Jimmy John's every day, like at first, like, you know?
Well, it's almost like, what's the pressure like? Because like, do they expect you to like, okay, Trump is in the news, write something about Trump, which is, already funny in itself. Like, you don't have to do anything, but like, what is the pressure like to going through that interviewing process?
So the interview process, this is something I've learned because I've written a lot of packets over the years, and I've had opportunities to interview for different jobs over the years, and I've been just a really bad interviewer, and I've just been horrible. Like there was one interview where someone was like, "So tell me about yourself," and I thought that was an opening to tell them my whole autobiography, like where I was born, what time I was born, what my favorite food is, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I've realized that in the interview, usually if you've gotten to the interview, they really just want to make sure that you're sane and that you can you can hang out, basically. And it took me a while to realize that, and that you have to keep it sort of conversational, but also lay out a bunch of stuff that kind of seals the deal, like just kind of like casually bringing up the things that you've done that make you good for the job. So in my experience, it's been like a really I've learned to find how to make it casual, but also how to make it something that doesn't make you look crazy.
We had an LA comedian, Tribble, on the show a couple episodes ago, and her best job interview advice was lie straight out, lie often and lie frequently. Can you endorse that? Or
I cannot endorse that, but sometimes you do have to lie in that no one wants to know what your feelings are. You have to kind of gloss over, just make everything look shiny, which isn't necessarily a lie. You're just not saying the parts that you didn't like about your past,
It's like, did you manage or supervise? Like, which is more favorable? And I'll be that. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's what Tribble was trying to suggest. Is like,
Like, but you learn, I do think in the industry as a whole, and especially like the comedy side of it, it is very close to politics. You find yourself talking in a very political manner, just because you never know what toes you're going to step on. You never know who knows who.
That's interesting.
You never, so you figure out this nuanced song and dance with.
Is that a comedy thing in general, just across the network, or is it a?
No, I don't think it's like, across the network of on the industry end of it. I think with just comedians, you can kind of do whatever what you want in a lot of ways and burn any bridge. But when it comes to things that give you a paycheck, you find that that you just kind of have to tiptoe around a lot of stuff sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. How many years were you in Chicago, Tim? When you were planning your flag here?
I think I was there for just about 5 years. I remember I moved there at the beginning of 2012, and then I left the summer of 2016. And I owe a lot to Chicago because it really is where I kind of honed whatever my comedic voice is, and learned how to semi function as an adult, and figure out and really just like figure out how to tell jokes to different kinds of people, because Chicago is a super segregated city, but that also kind of helps with figuring out how you can make different audiences laugh. Like if you're going to Logan Square, if you're on the South Side, if you're in Wicker Park, there's all different kinds of crowds. So yeah.
Do South Side jokes hit on the North Side? Because like, you could like talk about the South Side and like, yo, I jumped on the red line going south, and people on the North, like, you went where on the South Side of the So,
well, that's part of it too. Like I didn't really, being an outsider helped me like figure out who I was, because I didn't have like a Chicago specific voice. So it was kind of figuring out what a sort of universal voice that I have. And I would say I was probably mostly a North Side comic, but when I would do jokes and notes and stuff, I was nervous about it because I'd never done that kind of black room before. And what I found was that usually the older black people really liked me. And then I kind of confused the younger black people, which is also like a pretty accurate depiction of me walking into a barbershop too. Usually the older black people can figure out what my deal is, but the younger...
I don't know what's going on over here.
But what's funny though, like sometimes you would see like white like comics who usually do stuff on the North Side. You'd see them go to jokes and notes on the South Side. And I don't know if I'm making this up, but sometimes you could see how they would pander to a black audience by being like the silly white, like they would become sillier than they are on the North Side. On the North Side, they're like Anthony Jeselnik or something. But when they go to the South Side, like every punchline is about how wacky it is to be white or something. It's like very, very strange. And it's one of those things where it's like a double standard, because sometimes people say like black comics kind of pander to white audiences by kind of messing with their expectations like that. So yeah, I was kind of a comedic anthropologist when I was in Chicago.
I like that. That's great. You should write that down. That's the title of the autobiography for sure. Is there like a favorite Chicago spot? I know there's all types of clubs, Laugh Factory. I've been to Second City, obviously. Are there comedians that we should be looking out for on the scene? Are there clubs that we should be looking back out for once things reopen?
Yeah, I will say that I very quickly just kind of lost touch with like the pulse of what's going on in Chicago. It's very strange, but
you're on to firmly bigger and better things.
No, guy. It's not even because of that. It's just like,
way to shit on your own city, Sam.
No.
We do not have a Tonight Show equivalent, man. I'm sorry.
Listen, we had Oprah for 30 years, my guy. Like, calm down. Don't act like it's been
her own network now. He hasn't seen the South Side in a very long time.
It is just because like it feels like just these past 5 years like have gone by so fast and so slow at the same time at like this crazy speed. Like even just like the dynamics of comedy and like certain things have shifts that I don't think we've really figured out yet. But in terms of clubs, I really love the Laugh Factory Chicago. I was fortunate enough to become a regular there before I left, and it really is like you step on there and it's like a cathedral or something. It's this huge space, and that's one of those first rooms where I learned that it's actually easier to perform in front of a huge crowd than it is for a smaller one. It's kind of disturbing in a lot of ways. The fact that it gives you this weird insight into dictators. I feel like that you can just control a large amount of people easier than a small group of people in a dive bar.
Yeah.
So definitely the Laugh Factory. And if I can promote a Chicago comic, the first one that comes to mind is this guy Jarrell Scott Barnes. No relation, but he kind of looks like me, and he has my last name. So in order to keep the Barnes name alive in Chicago, I'll throw his name out there.
he studied you for 5 years. You left. He's like,
nice. Only Barnes in the city.
He's like, no one will know this.
I want to pivot real quick because I always tell Gabe that we don't have enough nerds on the show, and we need more nerds on the show. The Star Wars podcast, man, was something that I watched and listened to. I need your spiciest Star Wars take. That's one. And I need the best Star Wars character because I think that there's truly only one answer, but I need to hear it from you.
Okay. You think... well, I'm obsessed with this character called Ochi. Do you know who Ochi is?
No.
This is something I talk about on the podcast that I co-host called Yub Nub a lot. Did you see The Rise of Skywalker?
Yes.
And I don't think this is a great movie, The Rise of Skywalker. How many times did you see it?
You're talking about 7. That's 7, right?
9. That's the last one.
9 I've only seen one time. I did not go back and watch that a second.
I saw it twice in one day, and I shouldn't have done that.
I saw it the first time. I saw it the first time in theaters, and then when it came out on Disney Plus, I watched it again. And there's this character that is so important to this movie that I did not remember at all, and his name is Ochi. And he is like, if you look him up and you look up his bio, it's just so strange to me how pivotal he is to the entire story structure somehow of that new trilogy. And no one knows who he is. No one remembers him, and they build him up so much. So I know that I said a character that none of you recall, and that people are going to have to look up. But
this is why we need nerds on the show, man, because that is something so far out of left field. Like, you ask the random person whatever, they're going to say, "No, Chewbacca for sure."
Yeah. I'm obsessed with it because it's like beyond logic to me how like he's the reason. There's like a dagger that they found in that movie that was important. Like that was his dagger, his Sith dagger or something. And I think that little robot with the one wheel belonged to him. And you remember they're like finding some abandoned ship. It's his ship.
That's his ship. Yeah. Now that I'm piecing it all together.
And you're just like, who is this guy? Like, where did he come from? Why are we focusing so much on this person in this last movie where all we really need you to do is answer questions? So that's just like a true obsession of mine right now.
That's fun. And then what's so is that your skewed take, or is that your
I'm trying to think of my spiciest Star Wars take.
Who shot first? That's the easy one to go to.
Who shot first? I know my spiciest Star Wars take is that I do think Lando and Leia hooked up at some point, and it's just not it's not depicted specifically in the movies, but I think it's implied that they
I would
did.
agree. Yeah, you know what? I haven't given that much thought, but I gotta say, Lando's a smooth, Billy D.
Yeah,
he'll get there.
And you gotta remember, Han was frozen in carbonite between Empire and Return of the Jedi.
Oh, you're talking mid-trilogy. Yes, that is a spicy take. That's a spicy take right there.
I mean, the universe can get real lonely, and Lando is the Mac of all space Macs, so it's possible that he could have pulled that. I'm not putting that against him at all. I think that's totally possible. When you're, I know that you've done like a lot of your own short clips, comedy clips. Was that like making that journey from just being a writer to doing comedy to being in front of the camera? Like, what was that a hard transition for you? Was that uncomfortable? Did that take a lot of courage to do that?
That was I've done some on camera stuff, but doing it in that fashion was a lot to just like figure out in a time where I am literally just in my apartment. Because I think the first time I appeared, on camera on the Tonight Show was during the wave of George Floyd protests, and it was a time when a lot of late night shows were trying to figure out how to produce content during a global pandemic from the homes of the of the late night hosts, and then two, like what's the right balance of talking about what's going on socially in America in a way that doesn't feel like you're overstepping, and that doesn't feel like you're going out of what the directive of a late night show is. So see, this is that part that I was talking about, how comedians in the industry end up talking politically, and you but yeah, I don't think it was too difficult, but it was like one of those things where I felt like it was similar. I was trying to find a way to make it similar to the way that I write a lot of my comedy, which is socially focused, but with a hint of absurdity, just because I think comedy is a good way to let people understand. So like I realized that it was both me not knowing how to respond to people checking in on how I'm feeling about what's going on with race in America, and and realizing that a lot of people feel this need, and so I pitched this idea of Jimmy checking in on me during this time, and then while he's talking to me, a bunch of people are checking in on me, like, and it's not just text messages, it's like faxes. It's like an owl comes in and tosses in a scroll of something. So I think that was a good entryway for perhaps people throughout America to get a sense of just this weird position people like me found ourselves in.
I want to. I'm glad you brought that up, Gabe. I want to quickly dive in. I took a look at your IMDb page. I'm not sure if this is somewhere you live a lot of the time, but one of the things among your acting resume that stuck out to me, merely because I couldn't find very much information on the show itself, Explosion Bus with Jonathan Katz.
Yes. Oh man. See, this is why my career is so weird, and this is partially why I'm so bad at interviews. I don't know how to explain the things that I just found myself doing. But I love the show Dr. Katz that used to air on Comedy Central, and I had all the DVDs, and I used to listen to the audio commentary and stuff before I moved to Chicago. And Tom Snyder, the guy who created the show and who invented Squiggle Vision, I remember hearing him talking in the audio commentary about how there's no actual motion. There is like the illusion of motion happening in the show, so everything's squiggly, but you'll never see someone stand up and walk across a panel. You'll see a close-up of the person, and then you see a close-up of the person that they're talking to, and the next time it cuts back to the first person, they're standing up. So all of the motion is implied, and I thought that was really cool. And me and my friend Ian, who I mentioned earlier, we just improvised some audio, and we took pictures trying to mimic that style. And we put it on the internet, and we just called it Dr. Katz Experiment. And then a couple years later, right before, like, it was like after I gave up on, going to City College, and we were hatching this plan to to move to Chicago to focus on comedy, I get this email from this producer, Katie, who is producing a new animated thing that Tom Snyder and Jonathan Katz are working on called Explosion Bus, which was a web series cartoon with Jonathan Katz and Tom Leopold as these two guys who are traveling across America looking for talent. It's really hard to explain, but they reached out to us, and so me and Ian, we were just like talk about like this is like the example of like lying. I think we just like we were so excited. We weren't really comedians yet, but we just like responded back to her, just like talking, like trying anything, grabbing anything that made it seem like we were just like these comedians on the rise. And they're like, cool. Maybe you can make the live action web series spinoff for this. So then when we moved to Chicago, we created this web series called Talent Scouts Honor that we bought a camcorder. This is what's crazy. In 2012, it was still, if you were making a web series, it was still more likely you were going to use a camcorder than your phone, Yeah. That's just crazy. Like a crazy example of how much things have changed. And we would just like make this web series, and we got to work with Tom and stuff. And then through that, eventually, I think like a year after that, we got to be voices on Explosion Bus. But how you explain that to a normal person in an interview, I don't know how.
Before we let you go, Tim, do you have a Questlove story or some interaction with him on the show? Like, is there a Questlove?
I don't have. I think I met him in a Zoom. That's what I'm saying. I haven't met anybody. I haven't met anybody in person, man.
The Questlove look at. He's like, oh, hey, look, there's a Zoom filled with a black guy. All right, cool.
But I do have a story, and I think it's the reason he follows me on Twitter. My girlfriend, I forget how long ago it was, but it was still when we were in Chicago. She got me Questlove's autobiography called, I think it's called Questlove Supreme, and I loved it. I was reading it all the time. And so one day I had to go to the dentist. It was really cold, so I was wearing like a trench coat or whatever. And I still had I went to the dentist, and on my way back, and I think maybe my head was my mouth was a little numb or something. On the way back, I have his book in this like front right pocket of the coat, and I'm getting close to where we lived, and it was one of those intersections where a car can turn, but you still are supposed to walk. So I walked up, and this car hits me. It's turning, and it just like hits me like kind of hard on that leg, to the point that side mirror comes off because of it. And it just so happened that where that car hit me was where that book was. And I still have that book, and it still has like a dent in it. And that's
so a jambalaya of stuff.
I know, this is my life. Like it, and so then I tweeted about it, and I think that's why that tweet is probably still up there somewhere. But I do have that story. Like, I think I always think about these weird coincidences and like these things that, like, what if I didn't, what if my girlfriend never got me that book? What if I didn't have that book in my pocket? So
I started a book club that has only 2 people in it, but the name of the club is Books Save Lives. So I think that you should definitely join. Tim Barnes, thank you so much for making time with us. Best of luck going forward with your future. We'd love to have you back to talk more Star Wars stuff or whatever you want, whatever's going on in your life, or if you make it back into Chicago, we'd love to have you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. This was fun. I hope it wasn't too weird.
Nope, not at all.
Perfectly just as weird as I wanted it to be, my guy.
All right. Bye. Good. Yep.
Tim Barnes joining us here on Weekend at Gabe's on this Wednesday night. Funny guy. I love. He was doing he was doing like the Bronzeville stuff over at. It was like a Bronzeville comedy, and we didn't get a chance to get into this, but like with Brian Babylon, I know he was doing some stuff over there in with that comedy circuit, and Jokes and Notes was coming on board, and so that's how I ran into him or heard about him, through the Vocalo connection, and just to see his growth and see, like, he was on Comedy Central, he was doing stuff for Vice, and a lot of different outlets. So I'm really happy for his success.
Yeah, dude, I do a half a page of notes for every guest, and my favorite guests are the guests where I don't even get through like a quarter of that half a page of notes. We were just talking about so much stuff, man. That's what's up.